for you, that's an opportunity to see what else is out there in the larger space of, let me say, search-based software engineering or optimization in the software engineering space. Without further ado, I'll hand it over to Mingyu.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. All right, yeah, thanks everyone for coming, and thanks Marcus for the kind invitation and also introduction. So, because this course is actually research-based software engineering, so I guess it may be a good idea for me to show you my research, a very recent research topic related to software engineering. My own research field is actually game theory. Now, you may be wondering why would I be in the School of Computer Science if I'm interested in game theory? Well, yes, there are a lot of economics who study game theory, but game theory has also attracted attention from computer scientists recently for a few reasons. One is that economics, they tend to basically come up with the results manually. And actually, a lot of economics results involve very complex formulas and a lot of computation. So at the end of the day, a lot of computer scientists are interested in using computational techniques, for example, machine learning, statistics, computational complexity analysis, etc., algorithms, to deliver new economics results. Now, another issue is that nowadays, in computer science domains, there are actually a lot of new exciting economics problems. For example, we have blockchain, right, the cryptocurrency, and also on blockchain, people want to build a smart contract. That's a new economics problems. Basically, new economics problems with new challenges that arise in computer science domain. And we have electronic commerce, we have internet auctions. So, for example, one of my previous projects was funded by Microsoft Research. It's on how to design algorithms to decide what kind of user properties we want to share with the advertisers. Okay, is everything all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This one to me looks more like.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So, for example, there are many other exciting applications, new economics applications in computer science domains. So, for example, there are a lot of startups on car sharing, scooter sharing, bicycle sharing, right? So I also had a collaborative project with some colleagues in Japan on how to do car sharing properly, and that's basically on designing algorithms to figure out the scheduling, allocation of cars, and considering, for example, properties such as locations and etc. Anyway, so that's a very quick introduction of myself. Today we will talk about this topic, which is essentially the following idea. The idea is that people nowadays sell bugs for money. Security researchers now legitimately can make money by selling bugs. By selling bugs, I mean, for example, if I'm a security researcher, I figure out that there's some bug in Windows, I can sell that. People would buy that. And there are, first of all, completely white markets. For example, for Google's Chrome browser, they have basically the reward system. If you figure out a bug on Chrome, you can submit that to Google, and Google will pay you something about $500 to maybe $5,000. Now, this is actually a very cheap way for Google to fix their bugs, because, for example, let's just imagine. I think they spend only about $500,000 over the span of several years. So $500,000, you just think maybe each bug is $500, then $500,000 for $500 per bug, and then they basically get something like 1,000 bugs, right? So basically they collect 1,000 bugs with $500,000. But nowadays, if they hire security researchers in Silicon Valley, that $500,000 would maybe get them 2 or 3 for 1 year, and there's no way these 3 researchers can discover 1,000 bugs. All right, so it's basically bug bounty programs offered by software vendors is actually a very cheap way to get security information. Now, there are also other parties who are interested in purchasing bugs. We have the somewhat, so just now we mentioned the really like a completely legitimate white market, and then there's some kind of like a really great, somewhat grayish market. So there are financial companies, for example, they want to purchase bug because they want to get informed first. They cannot wait for the software vendor to fix their products. And so basically they pay money to incentivize people to basically tip them off earlier, slightly earlier than the vast majority of the others who are working in the security community. All right, so financial companies, they want to pay for bugs. The purpose is not to fix them. The purpose is just to get the information earlier. And there are also, for example, police and national security agencies, they want to buy bugs. They buy bugs for example, counterterrorism reasons, for fighting crimes, etc. Right? So there's one company whose name is ZeroDim. It's actually a venture capital funded company, and all they do is that they would buy bugs from hackers and security researchers, okay, however you want to call them. They would buy bugs and then they would resell that to what they would call like national security agencies from democratic countries, okay. They're not selling to North Korea, okay, etc. And now the market is actually huge. The value of one bug can be, so for example, maybe you can make a guess. So for example, if someone discovers a very serious iOS bug, okay, so for example, the latest version of iOS, and you discover a very serious bug, well, people can remotely control a phone, get information from a phone. Now, can you guess how much that bug is worth? 1 million, yes, exactly. So they used to offer 1 million, then they 1 or 2 years ago, now they are getting to like a 1.5, 2 million, etc. for one bug. All right, so basically, because this is already like an economic phenomenon out there, and it's legitimate, and it involves actually a lot of money. So basically, that's what we plan to study in this paper from a very specific perspective. Okay, but today, I actually mentioned that to Marcus because most of you here are not already familiar with game theory. So what I plan to do is just to start lecture with maybe 30 minutes very general introduction of game theory. All right, and maybe for some of you that would be the more interesting part. And then afterwards, I will go back to the paper and talk about the specific problem we are studying and also the specific results. Okay, and all right, so now let me just start with a very general introduction of game theory. So I'll show you today I actually prepared 4 examples. 4 examples to basically illustrate what the whole game theory research is about. All right. So, for example, what kind of problems you are working on, and what a good result looks like. All right. So for example, now let's consider our first story. Story 1. The story 1 goes like this. I have one item for sale. So, for example, we are selling a car. All right. So we have one item for sale, and there are many bidders. We have a seller selling this car, and then there are many bidders, and then there are many different ways to sell this car. What would be the best way? All right. So, for example, I have a bidder, and then whose value is V1. Basically, for the first guy, I believe this car is worth this specific value. All right. And then we have bunch of other bidders, V1 all the way to Vn. So, for example, the first guy maybe, let's say this is some kind of like an antique car. And then the first guy may be believing that this is junk, $5,000. The second guy maybe believe this is $500,000, okay? Anyway, each to their own. And then now, how can we design a way to sell this car? For example, what is the best way to sell? And then you may be thinking, what's the meaning of the word the best, all right? So for example, from a seller's perspective, maybe the meaning of best can easily be, I want to make as much money as possible, All right. Okay. So now let's see how we can sell this car for as much money as possible. There are many, many different ways to sell this car. So for example, we can use what we call the first price auction. The first price auction is essentially everyone submits a price. For example, you bid 9, you bid 12, you bid maybe like a 4, etc. Everyone submits a price, and then whoever submits the highest price is the winner, and then he pays basically whatever price he names. That's the first price auction. Now, this is actually not necessarily a good idea because, well, why would I bid 12? For example, if I truly believe this car is worth $12, I wouldn't report $12 because even if I win, I would have to pay $12. That is essentially, I got a car that is worth $12, I'm paying $12. For me, I'm not gaining anything. So maybe what I want is just slightly underbid a little bit. Instead of bidding 12, even though I truly believe it's 12, but I wouldn't tell you that, okay? So this is my private information. So 12 is my secret. I wouldn't tell you that. I would maybe say I'm bidding 10. I think this car is worth $10. Then when I win, I'm able to pay only $10 to get this car, which is worth 12 for me. So actually I gained $2 worth of in this transaction. So I gained $2 of value, utility in this transaction. All right. So that's the first. This is the first price auction. One issue is that people are encouraged to lie. They have to lie in order to benefit under this auction. And then we can also have, for example, the English auction. The English auction wouldn't be something like this. Everyone can just start naming a price. So for example, I start with $3, and then $3 for once, $3 for twice, and then someone goes in $5, and then $5 once, $5 twice, and then all the way until at some point, for example, this guy, he's bidding like $8, and then this guy comes in maybe like $10. And then this guy would drop out, right? So $10, that's too much. I'm dropping out. And then this guy would hold $10 because, for example, suppose right now it's just him. Then suppose, for example, the other values are all below less than 12. Then this guy would be, for example, after he bids $10, the auctioneer would go $10 once, $10 twice. So okay, and then this guy gets it for $10. That's the English auction. All right. There are many, many different ways to design this auction. So for example, I can even design an auction that goes like this. Let's say you submit your bid. If your bid is a prime number, and then for example, if your bid is not a prime number, I'm not going to accept it. If your bid is a prime number, I accept the bid that is the closest to 25. Whatever. So the whole point, this doesn't make sense. This whole rule doesn't make sense. All right. But then the whole point is that you have many, many different ways to design an auction, and infinitely many ways to design an auction. Now the question is that let's go back to our original objective, which is how can I sell in order to make the most amount of money? What would be that rule? What would be that very specific rule? Now here's one rule, which is called the second price auction. The second price auction goes like this. So everyone submit their bid, okay? Everyone submit their bid. So for example, suppose I have 6 bidders. Everyone submit their bid, and then whoever bids the highest wins, but then he only pays the second highest price. So he pays $10 only, not $12. This is called the second price auction because the first price guy pays the second price. All right, and it turns out that this auction has a few really nice properties. The first really nice property is that there's no reason for you to lie under this auction. You do not benefit by lying. It's why? Because, for example, let's consider from the perspective of the winner. He has 2 options. One option is to win. The other option is to lose, right? So if I win, I have to pay $10. If I don't win, I don't pay anything. I don't get what I want. I don't get the car. All right, so basically I have 2 options. Either pay 10, get the car, or don't get anything. But if my true value is above 10, I would report my true value. That gives me the better option between these two. If my value is 12, by bidding 12, I get the option of winning. Because if my value is above 10, I do want to win. That's beneficial for me. And so basically for the winner, bidding a value that wins is actually the best option. Now, for example, let's consider from the perspective of this guy. Now, he has, once again, two options. One option is to win and pay $12. For example, I can bid 1,000. I can win and pay $12. Or you do not win. You bid the price that's lower than 12, and then you do not win. And then the better option for this guy is to not win, because he cannot afford $12. So for this guy, the better option between the two options, winning or not, is to not win. And by bidding the true value, he's not winning. So basically for everyone, whether you are winning or not, by bidding your true value, you always get the better option between the two. All right, so that's basically one nice property of second price auction. That is, you have no benefit of lying. All right. So now it turns out that there's one very famous economics result. So basically, there's a researcher whose name is Mayerson, and he figured out one idea in about like 1980 something, and he got the Nobel Economics Prize for that. And then the result goes like this: the second price auction, what we are talking about here, under very reasonable technical assumption, the second price auction would actually be the rule that gives you the most amount of money for the seller. So the best way to sell in order to make them as much as money as possible among all the possible algorithms, it turns out that the best rule is to just do the second price auction. And then the footnote is that you have to add a reserve price. So a slightly modified version of this is that you also add a reserve price. So for example, if someone bid, let's say if the bid are something like 10, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then in the second price auction, this guy wins and then he pays only $0. All right. So basically, if your goal is to make as much money as possible, you kind of want to set a reserve price. So for example, I set the reserve price to be $8. If you win, you have to pay at least $8. If your price is lower than 8, we raise it up to 8. And then whether you accept that or not, that's up to you. All right. So that's basically the second price auction, and then that turns out to be the best way to sell one item under a few very reasonable assumptions. All right, that's our first story.
Thank you. The second price auction with the reserve price, how does it generalize to third price auction with reserve price?
You mean that would be for selling two items?
No, for selling one item.
Why would you want to use third price?
I don't know, it's a generalization. I can make the 2 or 3. What's the problem? Does it fall into the same category, or?
If you are, for example, the winner gets the the winner gets the item, and then he pays the third price.
Yes, exactly.
Then people would actually lie.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, people would actually lie.
It's interesting how you have the transition just from going from 2 to 3.
Yeah, but if you are selling two items, if there are two identical cars, then the first two guys each gets one car, and then they each pay the third price. That's fine. Yeah. So even though the issue how to make the most revenue when selling one item, one indivisible item, that's basically the result we just mentioned. That was figured out 3 decades ago. But then how to optimally sell two items, that's still an open question. Nobody knows how to do that. All right. So anyway, so maybe we can use computational techniques to sort of like come up with try all the different heuristics here and there, and then in order to get a reasonable result. Anyway, so that's my first story. Now here comes the second story. The second story is kind of cute, maybe. So for example, nowadays the blockchain is really popular, and then the Ethereum network is actually the blockchain with the largest market cap. Even though everybody knows Bitcoin, but the total amount of money in Bitcoin is actually not as high as Ethereum. But I didn't check today's price. This may be different because they change a lot. Anyway, so for Ethereum network, there are not many useful applications right now. The good applications are basically gambling, all right? And then people use it as cryptocurrency. And also another thing is prediction market. So people actually use Ethereum in order to predict the probability of a future event. So here's one simple example. How do I encourage the weatherman to tell me whether tomorrow it will rain or not? Okay, so here's the problem. The problem goes like this. Okay, I have an example. Let me just pull it out. Okay. So basically tomorrow it may rain or not, right? So for example, I may use 0 to represent that tomorrow there are two options: rain, not rain. Okay. I kind of need the weatherman to tell me what's his belief on basically predicting this future event. The weatherman can tell me, for example, I believe there's like 70% chance that it would rain. There's like a 30% chance that it would not rain. All right. I kind of need a weatherman to give me this accurate information. How do I, for example, how do I encourage him to give me accurate prediction? Well, I need to set up some kind of a reward. So if you do it correctly, I give you reward. If you give me a wrong result, I, for example, punish you, something like that. Right? So for example, like I'm the boss of the salaryman. Tell me whether tomorrow will rain or not. If your result is correct, you get $100. If the result is wrong, give me $100, right? Something like that. Okay. So now, for example, if I set up a rule like that, then actually I would, if I just use the rule I described, if your result, tell me whether it would rain or not. If your result is correct, you get 100. If your result is wrong, you lose 100. Now, if I do it that way, actually the weatherman is not going to give me a probability. Okay? What I want is, for example, if the weatherman believes there's 99% chance tomorrow it will rain, he would say it will rain. Even if he believes there's only 51% chance tomorrow it will rain, he would still say tomorrow it will be raining. Okay? So what I want is I want that probability. I want that probability. If you truly believe it's 51% or 63%, I want that probability. And the more accurate, basically, for example, the weatherman needs to do a lot of data analysis in order to come up with this probability, right? So basically, if I simply like a reward or punish based on whether the result is correct or not, then for example, the weatherman can. I'll do some initial data analysis, and it looks like there's a good chance that it will rain, for example, 70-ish, maybe 70-ish to 90-ish, whatever. I don't need to figure out like the details. If it's 70-ish to 90%-ish rain, I will just tell you that it will be raining, right? But I want a way to sort of like encourage the weatherman to give me the actual probability. Now, how do I encourage that? Because, well, the probability is his secret in a way. Now, how do I design a rule? The rule needs to be something like, if you truly believe it's 63% raining, you will give me the number 63%. That's what I want, okay? So how can I come up with a rule like that? Well, here's one example rule. The result, the rule goes like this. Okay, so your reward is calculated this way. So basically your reward is calculated according to this formula. If it is, for example, two outcomes, 0 and 1, raining, not, right? So if the result is 0, your reward will be, if tomorrow it actually rains, your reward will be simply this. If tomorrow it is not raining, that would be this result. Your reward would be this value. Okay, so overall, and then Q is the probability you shout to me. So for example, Q 63%. That's the probability you give to me, okay? And then it turns out that if I set up the reward this way, if you truly believe it's 63%, you would give me 63%, okay? So why is that? Because, for example, if you truly believe that there's probability P of getting 0 and probability 1 minus P of getting 1, okay? If this is what you truly believe, then your expected result would be P times 1 minus 0 minus Q square, and then plus 1 minus P times 1 minus Q square, okay? And then P is the probability in your mind, okay? Because you are calculating your expected reward. Q is the value you want to tell me, okay? And then at the end, you can do the differentiation. It turns out that to maximize the whole expression, you want to set Q to be the same as P, all right? So basically, if you truly believe it's 63%, you will report 63%, okay? So that's the second story. Any questions, comments? Okay. All right, so once again, so for example, if we revisit story 1, the second prize auction encourages you to show your true bid. If you truly believe the car is worth $12, you would report $12. And then for the second story, if you truly believe tomorrow it will rain with 63%, you will give me this value 63%. All right. So now let's take a look at the third story. Story 3. Story 3 is actually a very sort of like a elegant economics algorithm. Okay, it's actually a graph algorithm. The algorithm goes like this. The algorithm is called the top trading cycle algorithm. Okay, top trading cycle algorithm. The idea is like this. Suppose, okay, I have bunch of guys. Okay, bunch of guys, 5 of them. Just draw 5 figure. Okay. A bunch of guys, and then each one has a house. Okay, everyone has a house, and then some better, some worse, maybe second story or whatever. Okay, whatever. Okay, anyway, it's like five different houses. 5 different houses. 5 guys, 5 different houses. Now, how do I? So maybe it works like this. Maybe it could be like I don't really like my house, but maybe I kind of like yours, and maybe you kind of like mine as well. So maybe we can exchange. So for example, let's say suppose right now you live north of Adelaide, like you live in Mawson Lake. I live in Anli, and now I changed my job to Mawson Lake. You change your job to Anli. Maybe we can, and our 2 houses have almost the same market value. And maybe I actually prefer your house style. You prefer my house style. Then maybe we can just do the change. All right. So now here's the idea. Here's the story. N guys, N houses. How do we come up with an algorithm so that they can just like shovel the house among themselves, and then at the end, everyone is happy. And then at the end, I want people to give me the true opinion. So you shouldn't lie to me. You shouldn't lie to the algorithm and benefit. All right, so here's the algorithm. The algorithm is like this. Everyone, in the first round, everyone basically announces what is his favorite house among all the houses, including his house, his own house. So for example, for this guy, if I truly believe my house is the best, I'm not going to change with anyone. So the algorithm actually guarantees that if you like your house the best, nobody will take it away from you, all right? So for example, if I truly believe this guy's house is the best, and then this guy, for example, believes this guy's house is the best, and then this guy believes, for example, this guy's house is the best, and then for example, this guy also believes this guy's house is best. Suppose he also believes that this guy's house is the best. All right, so basically in the first round, everyone expresses among all the houses, what is your favorite one? Okay, and then suppose this is the result. The algorithm is called a top trading cycle because, well, after everyone announces their opinion, you want to find a cycle of opinions. So here's one cycle. This guy likes this house. This guy likes this house. This guy likes this house. So we can just like a shovel that way. All right, so basically this house goes to him, this guy goes to him, and this house goes to him. And then now everyone is happier. You get the better house than your original one. Everyone is happier. And then once we do the change, we remove all the guys that have participated in the changes. And then we run the algorithm on the remaining guys. And then eventually, for example, after I remove these 3 guys, I could have, for example, these 2 guys left. It could be that, for example, there are 2 scenarios. It could be I like your house, you like mine, then we can do another swap, and then everyone is happier. Or it could be, for example, I like your houses, and then you also like your house because your house is worth 5 million. My house is worth like a whatever, okay, like an apartment or something, okay, and then the algorithm cannot find a cycle. The algorithm also stops. Or it could be, for example, I like my house, you like your house. That's it. Once again, we cannot find a cycle, then we stop. So basically, the algorithm is just like, everyone tell me which house is your favorite. If we find a cycle, everyone involved in the cycle is happier. And we keep doing that. And then if you got your favorite house, you are removed from the algorithm. And really, there's no point for you to stay any longer. You already got your favorite house. And then for the remaining one, we run the algorithm again until we cannot find a cycle anymore. And then that's when we stop. So this is the top trading cycle algorithm. This algorithm is very elegant, right? And then it turns out that it has many, many nice properties. One is that everyone is either, your utility either stays the same or increase under this algorithm. So you can definitely get to keep your own house if that is your favorite one, right? So that is your worst option. You may end up with getting a better house. So that's the first nice property. Now the second nice property is that actually there's no way that you can lie and benefit. That takes a little bit time to prove, so we are not going to that. But anyway, so you cannot lie. There's no reason for you to lie. If you lie, that only makes your result worse. And now another nice property is that if, for example, let's say I have 10 people, 10 houses running a top trading cycle algorithm here. I have 10 people, 10 houses running another top trading cycle over there. Then actually, if you join them together, everyone's utility is either the same or happier. So basically, this kind of market actually encourages more and more people to join, and encourage combining like smaller markets into bigger ones. All right, so that's basically an example graph theory-based algorithm in game theory. Anyway, this one is actually proposed by an economist. I think he also won the Nobel Economics Prize. Okay, anyway. Now, here's our final story. Our final story is basically what we call the stable matching problem. And I plan to show you a video instead of presenting that story myself. Any questions so far? Okay.
If you write anything on your computer, you need to get Grammarly.
I write pretty much all day, every day, and Grammarly.
So I want to tell you about the stable marriage problem. What I really like about it is it's completely unlike the kind of mathematics that most people have seen in high school or in college even. There's no numbers involved. We're not computing anything, no calculations, no integrals.
No numbers.
No numbers.
Oh,
no numbers even.
I'm going then.
let me pose the problem. So I'm going to play the role of a yenta. So let's say I live in a remote village, and there are a bunch of young men and a bunch of young women, and it's in the village's interest that everybody gets married, everybody pairs off. We're only talking about heterosexual marriages today. That's actually really important to the mathematics, but let's leave that aside for now. And I get to arrange the marriages. I get to choose. I know all the young men and young women very well. I know what their preferences are, but it's really ultimately up to me. And my ultimate goal, my principal goal in arranging these marriages is stability. So I don't mean stability over time. People might grow apart, their preferences might change. But I mean instead the following scenario. Say I've arranged a marriage between this couple here, so this young man and this young woman. And then I've arranged another marriage here for another couple, another man, another woman. But suppose this woman prefers this man to the husband that I've assigned her, and this man simultaneously prefers this woman to his wife that I've assigned.
That's not good.
That's not good. That means that these two are going to say, to hell with this arrangement, and run off together. So that's what we want to avoid. So I'll say this situation is not stable. And then the question today is it possible, is it always possible to arrange stable marriages? So I want this instability that I've just described to never occur. So it's quite possible that this woman really dislikes the husband that I've assigned her. And so she in particular would prefer this guy, but he's maybe very happy with his wife. He prefers her to her. So she wants to trade, but he doesn't want to trade. So this is a stable configuration, even though not everybody is thrilled with the arrangement. Instability is if and only if two people simultaneously prefer each other to their assigned spouses. Any other situation is stable. That's the one we're trying to avoid.
How big a group are we talking here?
I'm going to have no bounds on size whatsoever. So there could be, the 6 billion people that are on the planet, if we want, or 10 men, 10 women in a remote village, and people can have any preferences whatsoever. I can't control what people feel in their own hearts. So it's a big question, and it's not at all obvious that the answer is yes. And furthermore, even if the answer is yes, there's a computational question. Maybe there is some stable marriage configuration out there in the universe, but I need to be able to find it too. I need a way to actually make the arrangements so that I can tell everybody who they're going to be spending the rest of their lives with. So the answer is yes, and the proof is constructive. There's an algorithm due to David Gale and Lloyd Shapley in a 1962 paper on college admissions and the stability of marriage that proves that this can always be done. And so I'd like to describe that algorithm to you now. This is an algorithm that you can program a computer to run, but I like to describe it as via a metaphor where the men and women are playing certain roles. So before we begin, each man and each woman rank the members of the opposite sex. So in other words, everybody submits a preference list, 1 through the end of how many, or who they'd like to be married to. So then on the first day of the algorithm, we'll have each woman proposes to her number 1 choice. So some of the men will receive multiple proposals, others will receive none whatsoever. So the ones with multiple proposals then make some rejections. So each man rejects all but his top suitor. So at the end of this step, we have what we'll call tentative engagement. So some women make proposals that aren't rejected yet, and those couples are tentatively engaged, but we'll see that the algorithm isn't quite finished just yet. So on day 2, each rejected woman, so each woman whose proposal was rejected the day before, proposes to her next best choice, regardless of whether he's free or not. So some men will receive new proposals, others won't receive any. And the men now have a chance to trade up. So maybe you had a tentative engagement from the day before, but you have a better suitor now, so you can break the previous engagement and make a new match. So again, each man rejects all but his top suitor. So this is why we said the engagements are tentative. If at any time a woman that he likes even better proposes to him, he's free to reject and break the previous engagement and become tentatively engaged to somebody he prefers.
So he can keep waiting for a better offer.
He can keep waiting for a better offer. Then on day...
This is terrible for the women.
3, 4, well, you think that now, but wait till the end. So this is day 3, 4, 5, and so on. We just repeat this process. So any woman who is rejected the day before proposes to her next choice. And the men, again, have an opportunity to trade up. If they receive better proposals, they'll break the previous engagements and keep going. And then the claim is that this stops at some point. And furthermore, once this algorithm stops and the final engagements are stable in the sense we discussed previously. Let's see an example of how this whole process works. So what I've done here is I've created 4 hypothetical women, Charlotte, Elizabeth, Jane, and Lydia, and 4 hypothetical men, kind of funny names, Bingley, Collins, Darcy, and Wickham. And then for each person, I've listed preferences. So Charlotte prefers Bingley to Darcy to Collins to Wickham. Similarly for Elizabeth, Jane, and Lydia. And the men have preferences also. Bingley prefers Jane to Elizabeth to Lydia to Charlotte, and so on and so forth. So let's run the algorithm and see who ends up married to whom. So remember, on the first day, each woman proposes to her best choice. So Charlotte proposes to Bingley, Elizabeth to Wickham, Jane to Bingley, and Lydia to Bingley. So see, Bingley receives 3 proposals right off the bat from Charlotte, from Jane, and from Lydia. And Wickham receives 1 proposal from Elizabeth. Okay, Bingley right now has a choice. He prefers Jane to Lydia and Charlotte. So he'll reject these 2. That is, Lydia and Charlotte are both rejected. And at the end of the first day, we have 2 tentative engagements, Elizabeth to Wickham and Jane to Bingley. On the second day, Charlotte and Lydia, which were rejected the day before, make their proposals. So Charlotte proposes to Darcy. Darcy is proposed to by Charlotte. And Lydia proposes to Wickham. Wickham receives a proposal from Lydia. Now, Wickham was tentatively engaged to Elizabeth, but he likes Lydia better. So he's now going to reject Elizabeth, and she's back on the market. All right, so at the end of the second day, we have 3 tentative engagements, Charlotte to Darcy, Jane to Bingley, Lydia to Wickham, and Elizabeth is unengaged. So on the third day, she proposes, this time to Darcy. Darcy receives a proposal from Elizabeth, who he prefers to Charlotte, so she's rejected. And we have 3 tentative engagements again, Elizabeth to Darcy, Jane to Bingley, Lydia to Wickham. Now on the third day, Charlotte proposes to her next choice, which is Collins. You can see that Collins doesn't actually think very highly of Charlotte. He prefers Jane, Elizabeth, and Lydia, but he hasn't received any other proposals. He has no better option, so he says yes. And now the algorithm terminates because everybody is engaged.
That's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right.
All right, so now's the time for the mathematics. I'm engaged.
Okay. All right. So essentially, just to review, and in this example, actually, they used like a female proposing, right? And then he actually doesn't like. Okay. So let's quickly review this algorithm. So every female has a preference list. Every male has a preference list. Now, in the first round, every female proposes to her favorite. And then now, if a man receives more than 1 offer, he rejects all but his best so far. All right, but then they are only dating. They are not married yet. Because for example, if I have a man, I received 2 offers. I reject the worst one, and I have a better one. I'm dating that female. But tomorrow, if someone gives me a better offer, I'm going to reject the current. Okay, anyway, and then move on to the better offer. All right. So and then eventually the algorithm would actually stop, and the complexity is actually big O n squared. So if the n man n female, then then it takes about like n squared rounds to stop. Now, when the algorithm stops, everyone is paired against. So, but every man is paired against 1 woman. You don't have any like unpaired people left. And then at the end, it's always a stable matching. So you do not have 2 couples where man of couple A prefers woman of couple B, and woman of couple B actually also prefers man of couple A. Then because they would run away together, right? Okay. So now there's another very interesting part. Actually, the side, so now can you guess which side gets the better deal in this market? So basically, for the men's side, I'm just like waiting, and I always get the best, always keep the best offer. And if there are multiple offers, I reject. And then even if I'm dating someone today, tomorrow I may change my mind and reject and get a better offer. That's for male. For female, you just like keep proposing to your favorite. And if you get rejected, too bad. There's nothing you can do. Then you propose to the next one. So now which side actually gets the better deal, in your opinion? Men? Okay. So if you believe men are getting the better deal, please raise your hand. Okay. Well, actually, the proposing side gets the better deal. At the end, we can show that there are many different, basically, given the setup, there are many different stable matching. The proposing side, for example, in this example, the female side, every woman actually gets the best offer she can possibly get among any stable matching. So basically, when the algorithm terminates, the woman is always paired against basically the best man, in her opinion, among all the stable matching. And then every man is actually paired against the worst possible woman in every stable matching. So the proposing side actually has a huge advantage. The receiving side has a disadvantage. Okay. So maybe the most important lesson today for you is that just like seize the fate in your hand and then be the proposing side instead of passively waiting. Okay. All right. So I guess that's is that in the quiz? Yeah, anyway. All right, so any questions, comments? Okay. So now, oops, I just spent 1 hour on that.
Okay. Do we want to take a short break and then continue?
Yeah, sure. Either way. Yeah, we can do that.
What do you reckon, 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, easy. Then everybody has time to digest and think about the 4 examples, 4 stories. Thank you, Mingyu. We'll continue at 12 plus 5 is 1. So 12 or 1. 12 or 2, let's round up. 12 or 2. All right.
Yeah, thank you.
If you have questions, ask for Mingyu, of course.
Definitely be sure. I should have a line from 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If you need to stop somewhere,
this is actually basically for conference talk. Most likely last like 20 minutes or something.
about 20 minutes, maybe 10% slower, so 20 minutes. Don't worry, I won't ask them.
I really like the super elegant algorithm. It's just so difficult to come by.
Yeah.
Every time you come by one is huge.
Exactly, because I consider this and that, but for a simple setup, you have a relatively neat, clean algorithm that does not follow it. I like that one. Outcome minus Q or P or something.
Okay, yeah.
There's a formula that this is not super intuitive, but you can write it down, I guess, and you have to write down 10 different versions of it. But then to prove, okay, this is what you actually want to do.
Yeah, for that one, indeed, there are many different versions.
For sure, for formulas, they are for sure different and equal degrees of freedom. But for say the nervous problems, once you throw in constraints, other things, and you've got other problems again. But for something just simple, it's nice. Simple is nice for that. Anyway, you're doing a great job. It's very motivating. Anything, background. Very good. Suppose this one goes well, it says it's recording.
You can check. You can check. Do you know that you can check here? Oh, no, this is wrong code. No, I cannot check.
This one is looks more like orange than red. But it is pause, resume, so it's recording.
Yeah.
Although I really wonder where the microphone is, if it's not on. Alright,
Okay. All right, so now let's get back to the actual topic today. Actually, it won't last another hour, trust me. Okay, so this is actually an advanced topic project. So I supervise this project with Professor Alibaba, and the student's name is Yang Yong. Many of you probably know him because he runs a lot of WeChat groups on like computer science courses. Anyway, I mentioned that earlier in the motivation part of this talk, I mentioned that bugs can be very, very expensive. So here's one scenario. For example, an iOS bug can cost 1 or 2 million something. That's too expensive. Now, let's just imagine that there are many small companies, there are many small businesses, like startups. They have no resource. They have no money to buy the bugs themselves. They have no money to hire security expert, in-house security expert to help them keep track of what's going on every day and then judge what information is useful or not. So maybe what we can do is just create a security alliance. So the motivational story goes like this. So maybe we can create a security alliance. Now, small businesses are welcome to join. Now, it would go like this. A bug is expensive, but maybe if there are enough companies in the alliance, then we can group purchase the bug. Because once we have the bug, it's not like, for example, buying for a car. It's very difficult to share the car among 100 parties. But if it's just a piece of information, the marginal cost of sharing to another party is 0, right? So once you have the information, you can easily share with everyone. So basically, for example, if the bug is worth 1 million, and there are 100 companies in the alliance, then every company only needs to pay 10,000. Or if the bug is worth 5,000, there are 100 companies, then every company needs to pay $50. You pay only $50 to get the information, right? Instead of 5,000, which is actually a lot of money for small businesses. All right, so that's basically the story. That's the whole idea, okay? We already introduced the game theory a little bit, okay? And we are basically studying a scenario where we want to create a market for bugs, okay? And then the setup is something like this. Here I have the overall economic model is just like, of course, we oversimplified it in order to basically turn into a mathematical model where we can apply our analysis. And then the model goes like this. There's one bug for sale, okay? There's one bug for sale. Then there are N agents in the alliance. So N companies in the alliance. And then now, maybe I can just like describe it here. Okay, so here's the story. There's one bug for sale, and then the price of the bug without loss of generality. I'll just assume that the price is actually $1. Okay, $1, $1,000, 1 million, it doesn't really matter. The price is just $1. One bug for sale, the price is $1. and then there are N participants in my bug bounty alliance. And then, for example, N equals 10, 100, whatever. And then now there's also a time period. The time period is from 0 to 1. 0 is when the bug is discovered. So I can start selling this bug. This is when the alliance receives the bug. And then 1 is when the bug is no longer worth any money. So for example, let's say the bug is on iOS 7, and then now this is when iOS 8 is released. Then the bug is not worth anything afterwards. Or okay. All right. So basically, we assume that there's a time period from 0 to 1, and then the bug is valuable in this time period. Or it could be, for example, 1 is when Apple notices this bug and Apple decides to fix it. All right. Okay. So now we assume that there are N agents, N participants. Everyone actually has a value for the bug. So for example, the first guy, he believes the value is 0.6. The second guy is 0.4, 0.3, for example, 4 again, etc. So for example, just make it easier. N is equal to 4. The first guy believes the bug is worth 0.6. The second guy believes it's worth 0.4, and etc. All right. And then, by the way, what is the meaning of 0.6? 0.6 is basically for the whole period. This guy believes if I get the information at time 0, I'm willing to pay 0.6. If you give me the information halfway, I'm not going to pay 0.6. And here in the model in this paper, we make the simplification that goes like, if you give me halfway, I'm only willing to pay 0.3. If you give me like in the last 10% of this time period, I'm only going to pay 0.06. All right. And then similarly for the second guy, if you give me from the beginning, I'm paying 0.4. Okay. Now, basically everyone would, for example, for the first guy, once I receive the bug, you cannot take it away from me. So because it's a piece of information, once I already know it, I basically get to, for example, if you give me this information at this time, then I get to enjoy all the period afterward. There's no way for me, for example, to only enjoy this period because you cannot take it back. All right. So that's one property we have to consider, we have to keep in mind. Now that's the setup of the problem. One bug, price is constant, 1. And then N guys, for example, N equals 4. Everyone has a value. And then, of course, I don't know the participant's value. The values are basically everyone's secret. And then now I just need to, I have a few goals. The first goal is that I need to collect $1 from those guys. I need to collect $1. Otherwise, basically, suppose we have an alliance, I cannot just keep wasting money to please everyone. So basically, I'm sending this bug to everyone, but I need to get the worth back. So my first goal is to get that $1 from all the guys. So maybe I get like half a dollar from this guy, maybe a quarter from this guy, maybe a quarter from this guy, something like that. I need to get exactly $1 from all the guys. And then now the second, that's basically one constraint. Now my goal is to release the bug to everyone as early as possible. So for example, I may actually release the bug to different people at different times. So maybe, for example, for the first guy, if you pay a lot, I'll give you slightly earlier. And then here, if you pay some amount, then I'll give you slightly later. And then if you don't pay anything, I'll give you, basically, I'm not going to give it to you. And then you wait until time 1, when it's no longer valuable, then I would give it to you. All right. So basically, for everyone, the algorithm would go like this. I collect all the values, and then based on all the values, I figure out at what time period I would give the bug to each of them. And then I also need to decide how much I should charge from each of them. I should get exactly $1 back, and then I want to release to everyone as early as possible. That's basically my goal. All right. So now it turns out that, for example, here's one rule. One rule can go like this. If you participate, then I just charge, if the 4 guys, I just charge 0.25 from everyone. I always just charge 0.25 from everyone. All right. And then I get a bug. Then I would just like, because my goal is to release the information as early as possible. Why? Because by releasing as early as possible, I make the society better in a way, because it's security information. I want people to get to know it as early as possible. So one idea is that, okay, I'm going to charge a fixed amount from everyone, and then I just release to everyone at time 0. That's one idea. But then that is actually not going to work. Why is that? Because it could be something like this. So for example, I really like the bug. I kind of like the bug. I kind of like the bug. I don't care about this bug at all. Okay? Now if your rule is that everyone needs to pay 0.25, everyone needs to pay 0.25, I'm not willing to pay that. And then you cannot, so basically, if you force me to do something that's bad for me, then I'm no longer in your alliance. Screw your alliance, I'm leaving you, okay? So this is bad. Okay, now maybe we can do something else. Maybe what we can do is that, for example, what we can do is that, okay, so maybe what we can do is that, all right, so if here there are 3 guys, I'm going to just charge you, for example, 0.33. I'm going to charge you 0.33. I'm going to charge you 0.33. And here, I don't charge you anything. All right? I don't charge you anything. Now I collect $1. Yeah, that's good. And then now suppose I'm going to, now I also need to decide when I should release the bug to everyone. So maybe what I can do is that I want the society to be as secure as possible. So I'll just still release to everyone at time 0. Everyone still get it at time 0. But if that is the case, then these guys now have, for example, all the paying guys are not happy. Why is he getting the same like get the bug at the same time as us when he's not paying? Then yes, I believe this bug is worth 0.6. But if you do this kind of like an unfair rule, then I'm going to lie. I'm saying I also don't want the bug at all. I don't want it at all. Okay, I don't want it at all. Then you need to change it somehow. So for example, let's say this guy lies. He says that he doesn't want the bug at all. Then there are only 2 guys where you can get the money from, and then actually there's no way that you can get $1 from these 2 guys, and then you can at most get 50 cents, and most get 40 cents from here. So altogether, you cannot get $1. All right. So essentially, there are all sorts of like issues. The whole point is that designing such a rule is not as straightforward as maybe it seems. Okay. And then now at the end, our rule goes like this. Our rule is that, okay, there's a premium period. Our final result goes like this. It has the sort of like this kind of flavor. It's oversimplified sneak peek of the final result. Our final result would look like something like this. There's a premium period. I would collect all the beads. And then based on the values, I calculate what the premium period is. And then this is basically the premium period. And then if you pay, you get to enjoy this premium period. If you don't pay, after the premium period, I release the bug to you. So basically, if you pay, then you get it at time 0. If you don't pay, you get it after the premium period. And I want this premium period to be as short as possible, because even if you don't pay, I still want to release the information as early as possible to you, because it costs me no money to release the information to you. Why not just give you earlier? That makes you happier. Right? So our goal is to make this premium period as short as short as possible, but at the same time, I cannot make it too short. If I make it too short, then I cannot get enough money. I cannot get enough money. Basically, my constraint is that I need to get that $1 back. If the premium period is too short, I'm not able to get that $1 back. All right. So basically, at the end, the idea is that calculate the premium period, and then based on due to the premium period, those guys, the paying guys, would get it times 0, and then collectively they would pay $1, and then the remaining guys, they would get it afterwards. Okay, that's basically the high level picture. Okay, so now let's talk about the. Actually, I'm not referring to the slides, but maybe that's actually a better idea. So let's just see how we can build up to our final result. We start with a very simple algorithm, and then we just like keep changing until it satisfies our needs. Okay, so now let's take a look at our first. Okay. This is our first algorithm. The first algorithm is the trivialest one, the most trivial one. Okay, it's called the cost-sharing algorithm. This is actually proposed by economics like a few decades ago. It's a very simple algorithm. The algorithm goes like this. Okay, the algorithm actually is essentially something like this. Okay, somehow this doesn't work. Okay, the algorithm goes like this. The premium period is actually set to the whole thing. So you either get it at time 0 or you do not get it at all. You get it at the end. That's the same as do not getting it at all. And then, for example, if the bid are 0.6, 0.4, 0.4, 0.3, something like this, then basically what happens is that these three guys will get it at time 0, and then they each pay 1/3. And then this guy get it at time, I'm sorry, I need to change it a little bit, for example, 0.2. This guy get it at time 0, and then he pays nothing. Okay, so now what's the algorithm? The algorithm is find out the largest K. You want to find the largest K, so that the K agents each can afford 1/K. That's the idea. So so here, what is the largest K so that the K agents each can afford 1/K? The answer is 3. You can find 3 guys who can afford 1/3 at least. Then at the end, the result is that 3 guys would join in the cost sharing, and then they each pay 1/3, then they get it at time 0. And then the guy who failed to join, he get it at time 1. So that's our first algorithm. Okay. So for example, if it's 0.6, 0.4, 0.4, 0.3, then what happens is that there are 4 guys who each can afford 1/4. So everyone would then pay 1/4 instead. And then they all get it at time 0. And then another example would be, for example, 0.9, 0.7, 0.3, 0.2. Then there are only 2 guys. There are 2 guys who can afford at least 1/2. You cannot find 3 guys who can afford at least 1/3. You cannot find 4 guys who can afford at least 1/4. You can only find 2 guys who can afford at least 1/2. So they each pay 1/2, and then they get it time 0. They get it at time 1. All right, and then you can also have a situation where it's impossible. So for example, 0.3, 0.2, 0.1, 0.1, something like that. Then you cannot find any K that makes sense. So you would then, or everyone would then get it at time 1. You do not get that $1 back, but you are not giving the information to anyone. So you just like do not sell that bug at all. All right. So that's the first version of the algorithm. that's the first version of the algorithm. And then the algorithm has three properties. Three very nice properties. One is strategy proofness, which means that you actually cannot lie to benefit. There's no way for you to lie to benefit under this algorithm. So for example, now let's say in this scenario, 0.6, 0.4, 0.4, 0.2. Let's consider from the perspective of this guy. Let's just randomly pick one. How can he lie? Is there a way for him to lie to get better deal? Well, the answer is no. There's no way he can lie. Even if he increased his bid, he still pays 1/3, always 1/3, if he increased the bid. If he decreased the bid, so for example, if I decrease the bid to below 1/3, then I may change the final result, right? But if I move it to below 1/3, so for example, I change it to 0.3, that's below 0.33, right? If I change it to 0.3, then it turns out that I cannot find a K that's valid. And then nobody gets the bug. You get it at the very end. So that is actually worse than paying 1/3 to get it at time 0. Okay? So basically for this guy, there's no way for him to lie to get a better deal. And we can just like try a few other examples. For example, for this guy, if he overbids, the deal is always the same. It's always pay 1/3 to get it time 0. If he reduces to below 1/3, then the whole thing fails, and then he doesn't get anything. All right. So maybe we can take a look at another example: 0.9, 0.8, 0.4, 0.2. Then still, everyone pays 1/3. For this guy, if he overbids, it's still this deal. If he underbids to below 1/3, what happens is that these two guys will join the cost sharing by themselves, and then this guy is kicked out if he drops to below 1/3. And then that's actually a worse deal than getting the bug at time 0 and pay 1/3. All right, so basically nobody can lie to benefit. You cannot lie to benefit. And then now another nice property is individual rationality. Your utility at the end is always non-negative. So, for example, if you are never forced to pay a price that you cannot afford. Okay, that's basically the idea. If you bid 1/4, I will never ask you to pay 1/4. For example, if you bid 0.4, I will never ask you to pay 0.5. Okay, the algorithm would never do that. And then ex post budget balance. This basically means that if anyone gets the bug before time 1, then the total amount of money I'm collecting is $1, exactly $1. The algorithm would collect not more, not less, exactly $1. The only exception is that if altogether we cannot afford the bug, then everyone gets it at time 1, which is equivalent to nobody gets anything, and then nobody pays anything. So the total amount of payment can be 0 in that case. That's the only exception. All right, so that's basically the first algorithm. Now here's the second algorithm. The second algorithm is called cost sharing with deadline. That's basically our modification of the classic result. The cost sharing with deadline idea is essentially just like the premium period idea. So here's the deadline. Here's the deadline. So basically, everyone just tell me how much you think this part, the premium period, is worth. If I can find a K guys who believes the premium period is worth at least 1/K, and then I find the largest K, then those K guys would get it at time 0. And then the remaining guys would get it at the deadline. Okay? So that's essentially the idea. Now, it turns out that this one is still strategy proof. Nobody can lie to benefit. Nobody can lie to benefit. Nobody is forced to pay more than you bid. Okay, but now here's the issue. The issue is that it's not budget balanced, because if I cannot find a positive K so that K guys think the premium period is worth at least 1/K, then what happens is that I cannot collect $1. There's no way for me to collect $1. Then everyone would receive it at the deadline. But if I give the bug to everyone here, that means I need to buy the bug from the security researcher first, okay? And then so basically I'm losing, basically the whole organization would lose $1 in that sense. You pay $1 to get a bug, and then you share it to everyone at this period, but you are not collecting that $1 back, okay? So it's not that's the drawback of this mechanism. Okay, now here's the third idea. The third idea is that my goal is to, for example, we may study, our goal is to release the bug to everyone as early as possible. So maybe we want to just optimize the worst case release time. For example, I just want to, so some guys got it here, some guys got it here, right? So maybe how can I basically minimize the worst case receiving time from everyone? So in a way, I kind of want to push the deadline to as early as possible, because the deadline is actually the worst case time for everyone involved. So the idea cost sharing with the optimal deadline is that we want to once we collect the inputs, once we collect everyone's bids, we calculate what the optimal deadline is. How can I squeeze it earlier so that I can still collect that $1? If I squeeze it too early, I cannot get $1. If I just be too relaxed and then leave it to later, then that's not a good result for me. So I just kind of push it as early as possible so that I can still collect that $1. And then I also make the worst case better. So that's essentially the idea. Cost sharing with optimal deadline, but we are not going to the details here. Now it turns out that people can lie under this mechanism. So, and then still people are not forced to pay more than what they can afford. And then we always get $1 if we sell the bug. But then people can lie, okay? So here's one example. So for example, if the bids are 0.9, 0.8, 0.26, 0.26, then the optimal deadline for this is actually 0.625. Okay, anyway, this is calculated anyway based on a certain formula. Based on these bids, we can calculate the optimal deadline. But then, if agent 2 reports 0.8, agent 2 would receive the bug at time 0 and pays $0.50. However, she can lower her type to 0.26. Now the optimal deadline is actually very close to 1. And then agent 2 would still receive the bug at time 0, but she only pays 0.25. So essentially, agent 2 can lower her bid and then goes from getting it at time 0 and pays $0.50 to getting it at time 0 but pays only $0.25. Okay, so anyway, so the whole point is that if you want the deadline to be optimal, you actually lose truthfulness. People can lie now because they can lie to manipulate the deadline. And then that actually makes the situation worse. Okay, now, and then we have one theorem. So even though this is actually not a perfect result, even though it's actually not truthful, it actually encourages people to lie. But what it turns out that it is actually a dominant algorithm. So basically, cost sharing with the optimal deadline is not dominated by any strategy proof and individually rational mechanism in terms of both the longest waiting time and the total waiting time. So we can actually prove this. So essentially, you cannot design a strategy proof and individually rational and a budget balanced algorithm that outperforms this, that dominates this. The definition of dominance is that if one algorithm is always better than the other one, then that is called algorithm 1 dominates algorithm 2. Right? So you cannot find an algorithm that is always better. And then we have okay, anyway, I'm not going through the proof. And then our final trick is group-based cost sharing with optimal deadline. And here's actually a very simple explanation. The optimal deadline idea, the cost sharing with optimal deadline, this one is not truthful because people can submit different bids to change the deadline. The deadline is calculated based on everyone's bid, right? So they can manipulate their bid to change the deadline, and sometimes this can benefit them. So now the group-based cost sharing with optimal deadline goes like this. So if I have n guys, I will divide that into 2 groups, n over 2, n over 2, okay? And then I will calculate the deadline, one deadline from this group, and then another deadline from this group. Then I would apply the deadline of the first group to the second group, and then apply the deadline of the second group to the first group. So basically, your deadline is not determined by your own bid. It is determined by people from the other group. So then you have no change, you have no say in manipulating the deadline. And then that actually addresses the issue with basically people manipulating the deadline. So the final idea is that I divide people into 2 groups and use the optimal deadline calculated from the first group onto the second group of people, and vice versa. And it turns out that this actually addresses the truthfulness issue, and it still has all the other nice properties. Okay, so, and then we can show that this group-based cost sharing with optimal deadline idea has all the nice properties, and then also it's also for max delay competitive. Max delay competitive means basically when we are studying this competitive ratio, we are looking at the maximum delay under an algorithm. So this group-based cost sharing with optimal deadline is for max delay competitive against cost sharing with optimal deadline. Okay, under 2 very technical assumptions. One is that no agent can afford the whole thing. Okay, and that's actually consistent with our motivational example. We create a bug alliance because sometimes a bug is too expensive. Nobody can afford that. All right, and then at least one agent does not participate in the cost sharing under the previous scheme. Anyway, this is a technical assumption. With these technical assumptions, we can show that this approach is for competitive against the previous approach. And then for the previous approach, we also show that you cannot do better than this. You cannot always do better than this. All right. So that basically says that this approach is, however you want to see it, is somewhat close to the optimal thing. All right. So it's 4 times away from a result that is in some sense optimal. Okay. That's essentially the main result of this paper. All right, so okay, I'm not going to the proof. Anyway, so and then there are a few other other parts of the paper, but we are not really included in the slides. Anyway, so this is just to show you an example game theory focused project, and it's once again an advanced topic project. So anyway, so if later on if you are interested in doing a research project related to game theory, you're welcome to talk to me. Okay, and the slides on the paper are both shown on the, I believe on the canvas. On canvas,
the slides will appear either today or tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, sure, yeah. All right, so I guess that's it. Any questions, comments? Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you very much for presenting this today.
Mm-hmm.
You reckon you?
Thanks. Thanks. Mm.
You reckon you'll be offering some honors projects in that direction, or PhD projects even next year again?
Yeah, sure. So actually, I have a list right now. Actually, if you search for the list of projects, you can see a lot of projects offered by myself, and including a game theory based like a PCAN advanced system for League of Legends. Okay, anyway, yeah, but I'm not interested in that project anymore. Anyway, so.
Very good. So if you're interested, at least talk to me to decide whether that's maybe something for next year or not. Okay.
Okay, yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
That concludes today's session. Then we'll continue on Monday with the first round of Spotlight Talks. Please be there on time. We have to start 9:10 sharp. So, and whoever presents first, you might have seen, I hope you have seen the messages, whoever presents first, please make sure that you have everything set up here. You do not need any credentials or login IDs or so in order to set up your presentations here. All right, see you on Monday.